Welcome, and pause for just a moment before you move on. What you are about to hear is not another typical English lesson, and it is not designed to overwhelm you with rules, charts, or academic explanations. This is a complete shift in how you understand English learning itself. For years, many people have believed that their struggles with English meant they were slow, untalented, or simply not good with languages. But the truth is far simpler and far more hopeful. Most learners didn't fail because of ability, but because they were taught through systems that never fit how real humans learn to speak. This approach begins by breaking a dangerous illusion. Learning English is not about memorizing long lists of grammar rules or collecting vocabulary you never use. It is not about passing exams, sounding perfect, or proving intelligence. Real language is a living skill, and it only grows through use, repetition, and emotional safety. When learners are constantly judged, corrected harshly, or rushed, their confidence collapses. Fear replaces curiosity. Silence replaces practice. And over time, they start believing that English is something meant for others, not for them. This moment is where everything changes. For the first time, you are invited to see English not as a school subject, but as a tool you can rebuild at your own pace. This is not motivation for a day. It is a reframing of identity. You are not broken. You are not late. You are not behind. You simply lack the right environment, the right guidance, and the right support system. The purpose of this introduction is not to impress you with information, but to restore your belief. Because belief comes before progress. Without it, no method works. With it, even simple actions compound into powerful change. This is why the promise here is not vague inspiration, but clarity. By the end of this journey, you will not be guessing what to do next. You will have direction, you will have practical steps, and most importantly, you will know that improvement is possible even if you have failed before, even if you feel embarrassed when you speak, even if your voice has been silent for years. This is an invitation to start again, without pressure and without shame. English no longer belongs to classrooms or textbooks. It belongs to daily life, real conversations, and small, consistent actions. You are not being asked to become fluent overnight. You are being asked to begin. And when you begin with the right mindset, the path forward stops feeling heavy and starts feeling achievable. This is not where learning English becomes harder. This is where it finally becomes human. Once the mindset has shifted, once you understand that you were never the problem, a new question naturally appears. What tool can actually support this new way of learning? Motivation alone is not enough. Hope without a system fades quickly. What you need next is something practical, reliable, and available whenever real life allows you to learn. This is where the role of ChatGPT enters, not as a trend, not as a shortcut, but as a complete learning environment that most people still misunderstand. Many learners open ChatGPT out of curiosity. They ask one question, receive one answer, and close the app. They treat it like a search engine or a dictionary with better grammar. But in doing so, they miss its true potential. ChatGPT is not meant to be visited occasionally. It is meant to be used repeatedly, intentionally, and strategically. When approached correctly, it becomes something far more powerful than a tool. It becomes a space. What makes this space different from traditional learning is not intelligence, but presence. ChatGPT is always available. There is no schedule to match, no teacher to wait for, no class to miss. Whether it is early morning, late at night, or a quiet moment during lunch, it responds instantly. And unlike real classrooms or social situations, it carries no judgment. It does not interrupt you. It does not rush you. It does not make you feel small for asking basic questions or repeating the same mistake. That emotional safety changes everything. More importantly, ChatGPT adapts. It does not force you into a fixed curriculum or a one-size-fits-all lesson. It responds to you, your level, your questions, your mistakes, your pace. One moment it can explain a simple sentence structure. The next, it can hold a natural conversation, correct your grammar gently, or help you rephrase a thought more clearly. This flexibility allows learning to happen naturally, not artificially. In this way, ChatGPT quietly replaces what many learners never had access to: a private tutor who never gets tired, a speaking partner who never laughs, and a guide who never loses patience. It compresses roles that once required money, time, and privilege into a single, accessible space. But this power only works if you engage with it intentionally. Passive use creates shallow results. Purposeful use creates transformation. This is why understanding ChatGPT matters before learning how to use it. It is not here to do the work for you. It is here to work with you. When you treat it as a learning partner rather than a question-answer machine, it becomes the foundation for everything that follows. And from this foundation, real practice begins, starting with the most important skill of all: learning how to speak without fear. Once you understand ChatGPT as a living learning space rather than a simple tool, the next step becomes obvious. You must start speaking. Not later, not after more grammar, not when you feel ready, because the real reason most learners never become fluent is not lack of knowledge but lack of safe speaking practice. Words stay locked inside the mind. Sentences exist only in thought, and every day that passes without speaking strengthens fear instead of confidence. This is where ChatGPT changes the rules completely. For the first time, you no longer need another person to practice English. You don't need fluent friends. You don't need courage to speak in public. You don't even need confidence yet. ChatGPT becomes a private speaking partner that waits for you, listens to you, and responds without pressure. It is available when real life is quiet, late at night, early morning, or in moments when no one else is around. And most importantly, it never reacts with judgment. Many learners freeze when they speak because mistakes feel dangerous. A wrong verb tense, a broken sentence, an accent. In real conversations, these moments often bring interruption or embarrassment. With ChatGPT, that fear disappears. You can speak slowly, you can pause, you can restart a sentence 3 times. Nothing bad happens. The conversation continues. And in that safety, your voice begins to move. Using ChatGPT as a speaking partner is not about perfect English. It is about consistent interaction. By asking it to start a simple conversation, to wait for your reply, and to correct mistakes gently, you turn every exchange into active learning. When you say something incorrectly, the correction comes immediately and kindly, not as criticism, but as guidance. Over time, patterns repeat. Your mouth learns before your mind even realizes it. For beginners, this controlled interaction builds the foundation of speech. Simple questions, simple answers, small corrections. For more advanced learners, adjusting the level creates natural fluency. Casual conversations, realistic tone, minimal correction unless something truly blocks understanding. This flexibility allows speaking to grow without anxiety. What makes this practice powerful is not the technology, but the habit it creates. Daily speaking, even for 10 or 15 minutes, trains your brain and your mouth together. Fear fades, reaction speed improves. Sentences begin to form without translation. Speaking becomes familiar instead of frightening. Classrooms often fail because students speak once a week, if at all. With ChatGPT, speaking can happen every day, quietly, privately, consistently. And this consistency changes everything. You stop saying, "I understand English, but I can't speak." You start saying, "I speak, and I'm getting better." This step is not about sounding fluent yet. It is about breaking silence. Once your voice begins to move without fear, improvement becomes inevitable. And from this moment forward, English is no longer trapped in your head. It is alive, spoken, practiced, and growing with you. Once speaking begins to feel safe, something important happens. You start producing real English. And the moment you produce real English, another question naturally follows: is what I'm saying actually correct? Speaking without fear is powerful, but speaking without understanding your mistakes can quietly slow your progress. This is where many learners get stuck. They talk more, but the same errors repeat. Sentences improve slightly, yet something still feels wrong. English sounds understandable but not natural. And without clear feedback, confusion replaces confidence. This is why the next step is essential. ChatGPT is not only a speaking partner, it becomes your private sentence corrector and explainer. Unlike quick corrections that simply tell you what is right or wrong, this process shows you why something works and why something doesn't. That understanding is what turns temporary improvement into permanent growth. When learners don't know what they're doing wrong, they guess, and guessing creates habits. ChatGPT interrupts that cycle. You can give it a single sentence or an entire paragraph and ask for correction with explanation. Not academic theory, not complicated grammar language, just clear reasons connected to your exact sentence. This makes learning personal instead of abstract. More importantly, corrections arrive at the right moment immediately after use. This timing matters. When feedback comes while the sentence is still fresh in your mind, your brain absorbs patterns faster. You stop memorizing rules and start recognizing structure. Over time, you begin correcting yourself automatically without thinking. This step also solves another hidden problem: unnatural English. Many learners translate directly from their native language. Grammatically, the sentence might be correct, but it sounds stiff or strange. By asking ChatGPT to rewrite your sentence the way a natural speaker would say it, and then explain the difference, you learn how English actually lives in real conversation. Tone softens, flow improves, expression becomes human. Instead of asking, "Is this sentence right?" you begin asking, "How would a real person say this?" That shift is crucial. It moves you from accuracy to fluency, from textbook English to living English. Using ChatGPT this way also builds confidence. When you know that every sentence you practice is being gently checked and clarified, fear disappears. You no longer worry about repeating the same mistake for years. You are no longer dependent on teachers or classmates for correction. You have instant access to guidance whenever you need it. This practice works best when done consistently. Writing 1 or 2 sentences a day, correcting them, and saving the feedback creates visible progress. Patterns emerge. Weak points become clear. Improvement becomes measurable. English stops feeling random and starts feeling logical. Speaking gave you a voice. Correction gives that voice direction. Together, they create control. And when you understand what you're saying and why it works, you stop feeling lost in English. You stop hoping you sound right. You know you're improving. And from this clarity, the next stage becomes possible: building the vocabulary that allows you to express more than just basic ideas. Once your sentences are clearer and your mistakes no longer control you, a new limitation quietly appears: expression. You may speak correctly, but you still feel restricted. You want to explain emotions, describe experiences, or share opinions, yet the words don't come. This is where many learners misunderstand the real problem. Vocabulary itself is not the enemy. The way vocabulary is learned is: memorizing lists creates recognition, not ownership. Knowing definitions creates knowledge, not fluency. To truly grow, words must become part of your life, not just your notes. This is why the next step focuses on vocabulary through context, meaning, and use. ChatGPT changes vocabulary, learning from memorization into experience. Instead of collecting random words, you learn them inside situations you can imagine, feel, and remember. Each word arrives with a purpose, a story, and a place in real life. And when words have context, The brain keeps them naturally. Rather than asking for 10 new words, you learn to ask for words connected to daily routines, emotions, work, relationships, or thoughts you actually want to express. This makes learning immediate. A word learned today can be used today. When vocabulary becomes useful, motivation stays alive. You stop studying words for the future and start using them in the present. ChatGPT also helps organize vocabulary in a way the brain prefers by themes: food, emotions, habits, stress, confidence, relationships. These categories act like mental folders. When you speak, your mind knows where to search. This is why theme learning feels easier and faster than random memorization. Words stop floating separately and begin supporting each other. Practice is what turns vocabulary into power. With ChatGPT, practice is private and pressure-free. You can test yourself through quizzes, short challenges, and sentence creation. When you use a word incorrectly, correction happens gently. When you use it well, confidence grows. Repetition no longer feels boring because it is active and responsive. One of the most powerful habits in this step is personalization. When words match your daily life, your routine, your feelings, your experiences, they become emotionally connected. Emotional connection creates memory, and memory creates fluency. This is why describing your own day, your own struggles, or your own plans using new words is far more effective than any workbook. Over time, vocabulary stops being something you learn and becomes something you reach for. You no longer pause to search for the right word. It appears naturally because you have already lived with it, practiced it, and corrected it. Expression expands. Confidence follows. Correction gave your sentences accuracy. Vocabulary gives them depth. Together, they allow you to move beyond survival English and into real communication. And once you can express ideas clearly and fully, the next challenge becomes unavoidable: using English in the real situations where life actually happens. As your vocabulary expands and your expression becomes richer, a final question begins to surface. Can I actually use this English when real life happens? Knowing words and forming correct sentences is powerful, but fluency is tested in moments that don't wait: ordering food, answering unexpected questions, handling conflict, or speaking under pressure. This is the stage where many learners freeze again, not because they lack English, but because they have never practiced it where it truly matters. This is where ChatGPT becomes more than a tutor. It becomes a simulator for real life. Instead of learning English in isolation, you step into situations that mirror the world outside your screen. Restaurants, job interviews, airports, hotels, customer service calls, casual conversations with friends, difficult emotional discussions. All of these can be recreated safely, repeatedly, and realistically. By asking ChatGPT to role-play specific situations, you train your brain to respond, not just remember. The language stops being theoretical and starts becoming reactive. You learn how conversations actually flow, how questions are asked, how responses change based on tone, how politeness works, how hesitation sounds, how clarification happens naturally. These are skills textbooks rarely teach, yet real life demands constantly. What makes this practice powerful is control. You decide the scenario, you decide the pace, you decide when to stop, repeat, or try again. If you struggle in interviews, you practice interviews. If travel makes you nervous, you rehearse travel conversations. If emotional conversations scare you, you learn how to express boundaries and feelings with respect. Nothing is random. Everything is intentional. This kind of practice removes shock from real encounters. When a similar situation appears in life, it no longer feels new. Your brain recognizes the pattern. Your mouth responds faster. Confidence appears not because you memorize lines, but because you have lived the conversation before. ChatGPT also allows you to practice tone, not just content. Formal or casual, friendly or professional. calm, or assertive. You learn how English changes depending on context. This awareness separates basic speakers from confident communicators. You stop sounding robotic. You start sounding human. Another hidden benefit is emotional training. Real conversations involve pressure, mistakes, awkward pauses. With simulation, you learn to stay calm while speaking. You learn that silence is okay. You learn that imperfect English still works. These lessons build resilience, not just fluency. When English is practiced only in exercises, it collapses in reality. When it is practiced in real-life simulations, it survives. This step turns preparation into readiness. English stops being something you hope will work and becomes something you trust. And once you trust your English in real situations, a deeper transformation begins. You no longer wait for perfect conditions. You start using English as part of your life. From here, the next evolution becomes possible, not just using English correctly, but shaping it to fit you. Once English begins to work in real situations, another realization quietly emerges. Progress feels different when learning is no longer random. Confidence grows faster when there is direction. Many learners struggle not because they lack effort, but because they never know what to focus on next. They jump between videos, lessons, and tips, hoping something will finally click. Without structure, motivation fades, and improvement feels invisible. This is why the next step is not about learning more English, but about learning with intention. ChatGPT makes personalized learning possible in a way that was once reserved for private tutors. Instead of following generic lessons, you can ask for instruction that matches your exact level, your current weaknesses, and your available time. This removes frustration on both sides of the spectrum. Lessons are no longer too easy to be boring or too difficult to be discouraging. They meet you where you are and move forward at a pace you can sustain. By requesting short, focused lessons that combine grammar, vocabulary, reading, and speaking, learning becomes balanced and purposeful. Each session has a clear beginning and a clear goal. You know what you are practicing today and why it matters. This clarity reduces mental overload and keeps momentum alive. Structure also allows progress to be measured. When ChatGPT helps you design weekly plans and gradual difficulty increases, improvement becomes visible. You recognize patterns. Sentences you couldn't form last week now feel natural. Questions that once caused panic now feel manageable. These small wins build confidence far more effectively than motivation alone. Another powerful element of personalized learning is honesty. You are free to admit exactly where you struggle. Long sentences, verb tenses, articles, speaking speed, natural tone. Instead of hiding these weaknesses, you bring them forward and turn them into focus points. ChatGPT responds with targeted explanations, exercises, and examples designed specifically for those challenges. Learning becomes precise instead of general. This process also restores control. You are no longer dependent on external schedules or rigid systems. You decide when to study, what to practice, and how intense each session should be. English adapts to your life instead of competing with it. This flexibility makes consistency possible, and consistency is what transforms ability over time. When learning becomes personal, it also becomes sustainable. You stop quitting because the process no longer feels overwhelming or disconnected. It feels relevant, it feels achievable, and most importantly, it feels yours. At this stage, English is no longer a subject you study, it is a skill you are actively shaping. You are no longer following someone else's path. You are building your own. And once that sense of ownership is established, the final transformation becomes possible, allowing English to move beyond practice and become part of your thinking itself. Once learning becomes personal and structured, one final barrier remains, one that separates those who know English from those who truly live in it. This barrier is invisible but powerful, thinking in your native language and translating every thought into English. Many learners stay trapped here for years. They understand conversations, they can form sentences, but their minds move too slowly. By the time a sentence is translated, the moment has passed. Confidence drops, silence returns, and fluency feels just out of reach. This is where the journey reaches its deepest transformation. At this stage, English must move beyond practice and become part of your internal world. Thinking in English is not a talent reserved for native speakers. It is a trained habit, and ChatGPT becomes the perfect partner to help you build it safely and gradually. Through guided journaling, reflective prompts, and personal conversations, you begin expressing thoughts directly in English without translation. You write about your day, your worries, your memories, your hopes. These are not textbook exercises. They are real thoughts formed in real language. And when emotions start appearing naturally in English, something fundamental shifts. The language stops feeling foreign. It starts feeling available. ChatGPT also supports this process by thinking with you, not just responding to you. By encouraging follow-up questions and deeper reflection, it keeps your thoughts moving forward in English. You are no longer searching for perfect sentences. You are exploring ideas. This exploration trains your mind to stay in English longer, with less effort and less fear. Another powerful practice at this stage is real-time narration. Describing actions as they happen, waking up, preparing food, planning your day connects English to your physical reality. Language becomes immediate instead of delayed. Over time, your inner voice begins using English automatically. This is how fluency becomes subconscious. Speed also matters. By answering personal questions quickly, without overthinking, you train reaction instead of perfection. Mistakes may still happen, but hesitation fades. English becomes a response, not a performance. And this ability to respond calmly under pressure is what defines real communicators. As this transformation settles in, something unexpected occurs. English stops feeling like a skill you carry. It feels like a space you enter. Conversations feel lighter. Thinking feels faster. Expression feels natural. You are no longer preparing to speak. You are simply speaking. This is where the journey comes full circle. You began by restoring belief. You built skills step by step. And now, English is no longer outside of you. It is part of how you think, reflect, and connect. This is not the end of learning. It is the beginning of ownership. English is no longer something you chase. It is something you use confidently, freely, and without apology. Now the choice is no longer about tools or methods. It is about action. Everything you need is already in your hands, waiting for you to use it consistently and with purpose. You do not need permission. You do not need perfect timing. You only need the courage to begin and the discipline to continue. Do not let this moment pass like another video you once watched and forgot. Save it. Return to it. Practice what you've learned, even when it feels uncomfortable. Growth never feels loud at first. It feels quiet, steady, and unfamiliar. And if these words reached you, share them with someone who is still afraid to speak, still doubting their voice, still believing they are not capable. This journey was never meant to be walked alone. Stay here, learn with intention, speak with courage, because this is not just about mastering English. It is about reclaiming your voice and stepping into the life you are ready to live.